Okay, today I'm at Fontwell Park, even though it's off. Thanks very much to Fontwell for still letting us use facilities today with Chris LOADER. Now, Chris, you're a racing journalist,
Yeah.
but you've got a bit of an interesting backstory. It's not been all plain sailing to get to this point.
No, it's been quite a quick, but it feels like a long journey at the same time. Cut a long story short, how I got into racing and decided I want to become a racing journalist was all to do with a life-changing operation I had. In 2013, I was diagnosed with a condition called Ulcerative Colitis. And basically what that is an autoimmune disease which attacks the colon, and it basically just makes it become inflamed. And when I first had the symptoms, we just thought it was food poisoning, and we'd been to the fish and chip shop the night before, and then the day after I started having symptoms of what you would have thought was like gastroenteritis. But anyway, after a couple of weeks, after visiting the doctors, their recommendations, they weren't being met and the symptoms weren't going away. Got referred to a specialist, and after a few tests it turned out that I had a condition called ulcerative colitis. They gave me some medicine that worked for a time, and I went back to uni, which was down the road here at the University of Chichester, and I was studying a history degree, and it was working well and my life was returning back to normal. But then at the Christmas time, all the symptoms came back, and it meant I had to go in hospital for about a week, and we got on top of it, luckily enough, and they gave me a drug called azathioprine, which is some tablets, and basically what it does, it weakens your immune system to stop attacking my bowel, as it were. And that did the trick for a couple of years. And life was going along okay, probably not to where I wanted, but I had a job. I was working at my local library, trying to find lots of graduate jobs, but just wasn't having any success. And then in 2016, it came back with a vengeance, and very quickly, in the space of 3 or 4 months, I went through every medicine that they used to treat the condition, and the symptoms were getting worse. I had to take injections, I had to take more tablets, I had to have infusions, which was all really high, very high power medicine, and none of it was working at all. There was nothing that was really stabilising me, and I was just being kept going by steroids, but steroids aren't very good in the long term. Anyway, I ended up back in hospital, and after about 2 weeks it was getting nowhere with the condition, and I was losing a lot of blood. And when you're in a flare-up of ulcerative colitis, you lose so much blood that if you keep losing it at the rate I was, where you're going 20-30 times a day to the toilet, you're probably on a one-way ticket. And I had to have a life-changing operation where they took away my large bowel, and I had what they call a stoma bag, which means that basically your intestine comes through your stomach and then you go to the loo in a bag. It's not very pleasant, but the people that have them swear by them, and I totally agree with them. It changes your life, but it saves your life as well, and you're able to do the things you want. But it is quite a bit of a process you've got to adapt to. And it was a couple of weeks after I had the operation and I was at home, my first day back from hospital, I ended up putting on the St. Ledger, it was at the time, and Harbour Law won it for Laura Mongan, and that just hooked me. And every day I started following racing. I started going down the local newsagents, and it was part of my recovery, getting out and about, walking, being active, getting the Racing Post, bringing it back, and started reading it and trying to pick out winners from it. And when I went back to the library for my job, it was quite clear that I didn't want to be there, and I was getting really into the sport. And by chance, a few months after returning to work, I had the opportunity to go to Ascot. I was a member of, when it was Racing UK then, they did a club day at Ascot, and at Ascot they had one of those commentary booths that are run by Betfair, and it's come and have a go at commentary, and I had a go, and I absolutely loved it. And I was interviewed by Lee McKenzie and Rupert Bell. They used mine as a promo, and it got played out around the racecourse, and I just loved it. And from that moment I wanted to work in racing, but the problem is I didn't know how to go about it. Don't come from a racing family at all. None of my friends like racing, so I really didn't know how to go about it. So I created my own YouTube channel called Lucky Loaders 15, doing tips on a daily basis, and I worked really hard on it. It was low budget stuff with just an iPhone, and uploading it every night. Started to get a little bit of a small following, I branched out to quite a few race courses. I emailed 20 race courses. I got 2 emails back, one from Wincanton, one from Salisbury. The Wincanton one was really promising, and they said, come along back in 6 months' time and you can help run our social media, and that was really a big breakthrough for me. Also as well, in the meantime, I thought I'm going to need to learn about journalism stuff because I don't have a clue. So I was very fortunate that there was a brand new university course down at Southampton Solent University, just about to begin an MA in sports broadcast journalism, and that was perfect because it meant that I could still live from home and go to university at the same time and learn about journalism. And also as well, I was very fortunate in that time to get a really lucky break. I applied for the BBC trainee kick-off scheme for sporting journalists to come and have a go, and you'd kind of do like a summer internship there. So I thought, great, I could leave my job early, do this scheme, and then go to university, and it would all work out well. But unfortunately, it didn't quite work like that. But I got to the final 5 applicants in the region, and I think the only reason that probably held me back was because I was obsessed by horse racing. That's the only sport I really wanted to work in. But they liked me so much, they gave me a couple of contact details for local BBC places, and one of them was BBC Radio Sussex, and I emailed them, and I came along to Glorious Goodwood just to shadow, to see what they do. They were just doing like a kind of tongue-in-cheek show, nothing racing specific at all. It was Ladies' Day at Glorious Goodwood, and once they knew my knowledge and that, they gave me a microphone and stuck it under my mouth, and I was on air throughout the afternoon giving lots of racing snippets, trying to explain it in a way that was engaging to the public, and luckily that relationship has maintained since. And for every year now I've been going along, and last year was my best year ever. I was actually a roving reporter, and the normal presenters I worked with a couple of years beforehand, they weren't there for this year. But the producer remembered me from the year before, and he just gave me a mic, and I was in the winners' enclosure trying to interview lots of racing personalities, and that was very difficult because BBC Radio Sussex were about 10th down the pecking order from speaking to all the key names, but I managed to interview Frankie Dettori live on air, and also as well Megan Nichols, so they were 2 good names to talk about, and that was a really good day. But going back to my university course, that's what really set it up for me. Everything I ever filmed or did any projects on was racing related, and I was the only one also as well in my course that really you could tell that was motivated, that wanted to be there. I felt, because obviously what I've been through with my operation, I faced death pretty much. It's really shaped me, that has, and really given me the drive, and I wasn't going to say no to it. I was going to take every opportunity I got, and one of the requirements on our university course is we had to go away for 3 months and work on a placement in a professional like journalism place. And obviously I wanted to work in racing, and probably the three or four leading contenders would have been the Racing Post, At the Races, Racing TV and ITV Racing. And I was saying to my lecturers, I said, none of these people are going to be wanting to take me on. It was all like local stuff, and luckily one of the people that worked behind the scenes and was a production assistant, she'd actually worked at the races before, and she had the email address of Rob Dakin, who's the director of now also as well Sky Sports Racing, but they were at the races at the time, and luckily I emailed him, but I had to email him quite a lot of times. I think I emailed him about 3 or 4 times before I got a response, and the response is what I wanted, that he would be able to help me, and but after even more chasing up it, I finally was able to agree a 3-month placement, and I was based up in what is SIS in Milton Keynes, and I used to live in a Premier Inn 5 days a week for 3 months. Going there, I was kind of like their stat man researcher. That's kind of the role I developed, and it's a role that I've kept to now, and I work as a freelance researcher a few times a month at Sky Sports Racing, which I really enjoy. But going back to my university degree, that's really helped me shape the way I've learnt to become a journalist. Probably the thing I'm most proud of that I really want to do is, and racing has definitely forgotten, is the history of female jockeys. I did my dissertation on that, so I had to make a 30-minute film, and I did the history of female jockeys, and everybody in racing seems to think that Hayley Turner was the first female jockey when she wasn't, and then probably even the older people in racing, so some of the racing TV personalities you might see that remember the good old days. I can't remember the good old days. About 2016, I know all the form book from then, but if you want to talk about Quarter Star and Denman, I don't really know what that was like to watch, to be there, but I can watch the racing replays of it. But going back to female jockeys, it's a story I'm really passionate about, and I'm talking about in the early days when they were able to first start racing in 1972. They had a lot of sexism, opposition to them even being allowed to take part. And I met a nice lady that I got in contact through Sam Cohn, who's the PR and marketing director of Arena Racing Company. He got me in touch with her because I was doing some work with him about the Silk series for my story about female jockeys, and he's been really good at helping me get into places. But I met this lady called Elaine Mellor, who's the wife of three-time champion jockey Stan Mellor, who I believe was the first jump jockey to get 1,000 winners. I can't remember the name of the horse now, but he beat Arkle in a very famous race in the Hennessy in the 60s. But everybody that ever visits their household always visits him and not his wife Elaine. And Elaine Mellor is a remarkable lady. She started as a jockey when they were when female riders were allowed to compete as a jockey in the mid-70s, but she was different because she'd had all her children and she was in her late 20s when they were starting out, and a lot of the female jockeys that were riding at the time were in their late teens, early 20s, so she already had a bit more life experience. And I met her and she became the leading lady of my film, as it were. And I kind of was able to do a piece about from where female jockeys started out to where they are now, and I was able to interview the likes of Holly Doyle in my film. And that was something I was really proud of doing, and it's a story that I'm wanting to tell now. I'm trying to sell it to like the BBC, ITV, because I think it deserves more than just the racing niche of Sky Sports racing or racing TV. I think there's I think people, because like I said, a lot of my family friends don't come from a racing background, but when I show them that story, they're able to identify with it, and it's something that I really want to promote. And I'm still in contact with Elaine. She's been brilliant to me, and she actually recently got me in touch with Ascot, and I'm now doing some work for Ascot, currently cataloguing all the pieces he's ever done, from when he started out in the early 70s writing for the Evening Standard to everything he's ever written for the Independent, the Sunday Times, bits on the Racing Post. So I'm cataloguing all that for him because he's got a project that he's lining up. So that's one area I've got into. I also as well now write for gg.co.uk as a feature writer, and I do tips on a daily basis called Racing Tips, and I enjoy doing that. And before I'd done a lot of broadcast work, whereas now I'm moving more into writing, and I do like doing the writing, but I feel better as a broadcaster because I feel that I'm able to get my point across more, and also as well I'm dyslexic, so I do find it quite hard, a lot more harder writing than obviously talking. But that's what I'm doing. Also as well, I recently started working with a company called Square in the Air. They're a PR and marketing company, and I'm on their racing team, and I've been with them since the end of November, and I do a content plan for all the social media of William Hill. So like if you've just seen the Dublin Racing Festival at the weekend, I'm feeding them stats and information that could go into tweets and things to be aware of. And also as well, I'm able to go on course a couple of times a month. So I was at Cheltenham for Cheltenham Trials weekend. I'll take pictures and that, and it goes all back to base, and they put it up on the William Hill Twitter. So I'm starting to find my niche in a way, but it's been hard going back to my condition because after I left university, I had to take pretty much a 6-month period out because I had to have 2 further operations where they got rid of the stoma bag and did what they call a J-pouch operation. And it means I can go to the toilet normally again now, but you had to take quite a long time out. And I was really worried that all the progress that I'd made in a short space of time, a lot of people would forget about me, and they wouldn't be good to me when I was trying to come back. But people have been really good to me, and I think what I've showed is that I'm really passionate about racing. I'm learning about it all the time, and I want to do this for the rest of my life. And my dream is to eventually be maybe a pundit on racing TV or Sky Sports Racing and tell the world about the sport of racing which is a sport that I love and want to work for the rest of my life.
It's probably one of the easiest interviews I've ever had to do.
Sorry, I just talked about myself.
So where would you, what messages have you got for any editors, people in charge watching? What should they contact you?
Yes, they can contact me. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm at LuckyLoaders15. I've got an email address, a website address, I should say, www.chrisloaderracing.co.uk. Got all my portfolio in there, my contact details, and yeah, I would love to work for one of the more established names in racing as a reporter or professional, proper journalist. And I think I'm different because I bring enthusiasm, I bring passion to the table, I look at the sport every day, I follow it every day, and I feel that I look at things differently compared to other people. I look for new angles in the sport and try and promote it in a way, not just for like racing fans and aficionados, but also as well to try and draw people in that are outside racing, try and think about it in a different way to attract new fans to the sport. So
great stuff. We'll come back to you next year and see where you are, Chris.
Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, Chris Loader, thank you very much and good luck. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.